Great. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Cape Town Press Club event. I think the last time I saw this many people in this boardroom, Cyril Ramaphosa was here, so it's a really incredible turnout. And it's particularly incredible because it is our first event of 2025. And 2025 is an important year for the Cape Town Press Club because we're turning 50 this year. So we were established in 1975. Thank you. We were established in 1975 at a time when, of course, media freedom was heavily stifled in South Africa, and we were founded on the principles of protecting free speech and holding holding leaders accountable. And it's a tradition we've continued, and I don't need to tell you, you've all watched the news. I don't need to tell you how important it remains for us all to have a free and fair media around the world, and the role that the media plays in the democratic process. So it really is a privilege to be here, and throughout this year we'll be celebrating our past and looking to the future as well. So please look out for all the various events that we'll be having. Before we get started with the formalities of the day, I just wanted to acknowledge the passing of Jonathan Hobday, who passed away on the 11th of December. At the end of last year, and many of you will know that he's a former journalist as well as a well-respected golfing legend, and he was a very familiar face at the press club and attended many of the events. I'm sure a lot of you got to know him. It's such an honor as we extend our condolences to his family to have his daughter Natalie and her partner Colin with us today as well, so thank you for being here. I would also like to welcome the representatives of Heineken. So those of you who attend our functions regularly will know that we enjoy Heineken. We enjoy Heineken, they sponsor the wines. And in honor of Geordin being here today, they've brought some extra beverages as a special treat for the special event that you'll see on the tables. So welcome to Frank, Loazi, Janine, and Will. It's such an honor to have you here, and thanks for your ongoing support. And I do want to highlight the fact that you've supported journalists through the Press Club for the last couple of years and held media events for journalists. We're very grateful for the support. I'd also like to thank Tsitsi Kamo for the water. And then acknowledge a few other people as well. I'd like to thank Robert Hedison of Sasfin, who sponsored 2 of the tables at this event tonight. Thank you for coming, Sasfin, Team Sasfin. I'd also like to welcome the representatives of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. Thank you for your ongoing partnership and support. Then we're here because of loads of sponsors, including the Ben and Shirley Rabinowitz Foundation. Martin Hess is also another great supporter. He makes it possible for journalists to attend these functions. Henry Stein has also been very supportive of the club, so thank you for your ongoing generous support. And then the reason we're here is obviously for journalists. So as members of the press club, we enjoy it, but we truly want to give journalists an opportunity to get into a room, collaborate, network, and then of course chat to influential people who kind of lead the news stories. And in that vein, I would like to welcome, we've got some visiting journalists from Sweden and Germany, but we've also got my colleagues over there, and I'd like to welcome representatives from Eyewitness News, News 24, Ground Up, the Associated Press, the Medical Association's Press, Noseweek, and Engineering News. And I apologize if I've left anyone out, but we really exist because of the work that you do, and we thank you for the work that you do. I promise you all protocols have almost been observed. Every time there's a politician here, the list is quite long, but I'd also like to welcome diplomats from Belgium, China, France, Germany, Japan, Netherlands, New Zealand, Peru, Spain, Switzerland, the USA, and Vanuatu as well. So thank you very much for being here as well. And then, of course, a very warm, special welcome to the Mayor of Cape Town, Geordin Hill-Lewis, and his team as well, who make it possible for him to do the kind of work that he does. In preparing for this event, I was thinking about the first time I came across Geordin, and we were at UCT at the same time, and my priorities were a little different at the time. And I recall walking while he was doing something for the DASO organization. He had a loud halo microphone. And I was like, who does this guy think he is? Does he think he's the mayor of the whole campus? And those of you who've read a lot about Geordin will know that he has been very politically precocious, I believe from primary school, if the stories are correct. So he was very, very dedicated to student politics, so I'm not surprised to see him in this position now today. And I have asked the kitchen at Calvin Grove to prepare a large plate of humble pie for me because he may not be the mayor of UCT, but he is the mayor of the best city in the world, according to Time Out magazine. Some of the detractors of the DA have accused the city of being a tale of two cities, one where the services are great and one where residents are neglected. But Geordin believes that this framing is incorrect, and he prefers to think of our city as a city of hope. And he's going to join us today to explain that vision and the steps that his team are taking to build it. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Mayor Geordin Hill-Lewis to the Cape Town Press Club.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. Twanji Kalula, thank you very much for this kind invitation. And ladies and gentlemen, for the extraordinary turnout, I'm very grateful and flattered. I hear that it was a similar turnout for the President. I cannot speak to the quality of the food, but I can offer a reasonable assurance that the speech will be better today. I also do not recall our university interactions, Twanji, but I hope you voted for me. Your vote is your secret. But ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you so much for the invitation to join you at the first event, the opening event of the 2025 Cape Town Press Club calendar. I'm very grateful for the invitation. It's always an honor to stand here at this podium, and I've had the honor of doing so a couple of times before. This podium where so many distinguished speakers have stood as well. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and hear about our plans, our progress, our challenges, our opportunities, and more in delivering on the promise and the pledge that I made at the start of this term of office it's quite hard to believe, just over 3 years ago. And that is to build a city of hope for every person who lives in Cape Town. We are now well past the end of the third year of this term, and we're even a couple of months into the fourth year of this term. It is truly hard to believe that time has flown so quickly, but next year, 2026, is a local government election year. Would you believe it? I want to repeat what I said at this podium the last time I spoke here, because it is still absolutely true, if not more so today than it was then. I feel deeply privileged and blessed to be in this job. I love this work and experience it as sincerely fulfilling and meaningful. In fact, I feel that even more now than when I started, because I've seen that a few simple, if ambitious ideas put into action can really deliver tangible progress in people's lives. So I want to make this clear because I feel a sneaky suspicion I know why there is such a good turnout from our colleagues in the media today. I love this job and am not seeking any other work. And I am not at all certain that the stasis and calcification of the state at the national level can be shaken loose anytime soon enough to even come close to achieving the meaningful change that we can and are achieving in a well-functioning city. That's why I still have some pinch-me moments in this job. One thing that I constantly try to instill in my young daughter's life is what I call a sense of wonder. Don't worry, you didn't come here today for self-help tips. But I define a sense of wonder as the simple joy that one feels when struck by something particularly beautiful or awe-inspiring in life. And living with a sense of wonder gives one a curiosity about the world and a connection with something greater than ourselves. Recently, I had one of those moments returning from Hermanus, where our family spent a few days just before Christmas. I thought it was, by the way, just as an aside, I thought it was a good idea to escape the city to Hermanus, forgetting that half the city goes to Hermanus. So it was like being in a suburb of Cape Town. In fact, I phoned the mayor of Hermanus while I was there and said, I bet if I ran against you for mayor right now, I'd win. There's so many Cape Townians there. But there we were driving back to Cape Town along beautiful Clarence Drive. We went around a bend, and suddenly the full magnificence of Cape Town, stretched out from Cape Point on the far left to the Strand on the far right, was glistening, stretched out in the sun before us. What a truly magnificent corner of the world this is, and what a privilege to have some small part in making it better for all who live in it and for all our children. When I came into this job, I was a member of Parliament on the finance portfolio, and I took that job very seriously indeed and tried to contribute positively every day to the national economic debate. But I summarized the difference between then and now as follows. Back then, I woke up every day and thought, what can I say today? Now, I wake up every morning thinking, what can I do today? And that's a pretty big difference, ladies and gentlemen. So I really do mean it when I say that I feel this is the best job in South Africa. And I'm grateful to Cape Townians for letting me do it. So we are now well into the business end of this term of office. And before I talk about the what, I want to talk about the why, because that is most important. Why are we trying so hard to be different in Cape Town? I said up front, and this is still, I think, one of my deepest core beliefs about what is going wrong in South Africa. I said up front that this will not be a government just for government's sake. We want to use the precious gift of the opportunity to be in government, the opportunity that gives one to make a real difference, to get stuff done. We want to be a government that is unashamedly different, one which unashamedly stands for high standards in a country where we all seem to be becoming inured to ever-lowering standards. I think at its core, in the depth of my heart, my primary, deepest concern about our country is that we have come to accept mediocrity and ever-lowering standards in our public life. We see real excellence in the private sector all the time in South Africa, extraordinary stories of excellence and achievement. But how often do we see real excellence in the public sector? Very, very seldom indeed. Here in Cape Town, we are trying to raise the bar on what the public should expect from government. It is called the public service, after all. We must aim higher as a country, and we must lift our gaze. So we are an unashamedly aspirational city government. So for an aspirational city, as the chairman has already mentioned, I hope that you will all agree that 2025 could not have started off better than Cape Town winning the #1 ranking on the prestigious Time Out Best Cities in the World list for 2025. Time Out is no small travel magazine. It's a respected global travel publication. And what it says matters to the global travel industry. So the accolade is, of course, very nice indeed and very welcome. And we should be aiming higher on a range of global rankings in South Africa. And most importantly, the real benefit is that it will bring yet more people to Cape Town and will be yet another boon for our tourism industry here in the city. And that's really what it's all about. Because the reason we must push harder, the reason we must do better and aim higher and be unapologetically more ambitious and set higher standards is so that we can get more people out of poverty in South Africa. Poverty is South Africa's existential threat. We simply cannot have a future as a society, let alone a successful future, with the levels of poverty and unemployment that we see today in South Africa. I really do think that this needs to be the singular national goal of South Africa. We must grow our economy meaningfully faster to get more people out of poverty and into work. Sadly, that is not the singular obsession and the singular goal of South Africa right now. But let me tell you, it is our singular obsession and our singular focus in Cape Town. So if setting higher standards for South Africa and working to grow our economy faster to get more people out of poverty are our obsessions, we summarize this in the simple phrase when we say that we want Cape Town to be the city of hope for all its residents. But I also know by now that whenever I speak proudly of our ambition or our accolades or our commitment to growing the economy and getting people out of poverty, the very first question I am invariably asked is, or will be along the lines of, what about a place like Khayelitsha? How does this benefit residents them? And of course, that is a fair question. Because if our mission is to build a city of hope for all of its residents here, that hope must be seen and felt by all Cape Townians, and particularly, of course, those living in the city's poorest neighborhoods and informal settlements. That's why it's so important to not only grow our local economy and jobs, grow our city revenue and grow our budgets so that we can spend them and spend the city's money and resources in places and projects that have the biggest impact. Last week, I visited our brand new Kuyasa My City station in Khayelitsha. I really invite all of you to visit it with me sometime. It is a testament to the kind of excellence in service and depth of care that we always want to deliver to the poorest residents of our city. It is a wonder. It is an example of excellence in the public sector. It has beautiful, big, landscaped gardens, all with indigenous planting, with benches and shade for the public. It has lovely tiled mosaics, solar lighting, and the whole facility gives off the service to the public, safe and clean, while offering a clean, modern public transport service to the public. If you haven't seen the station yet, I urge you to look up the video that I posted of my visit on social media. Or even better, take a trip on one of our My City buses out there yourself. I was so delighted to meet a group of ladies just relaxing, having a picnic in the beautiful gardens of our station. And I'm told it is now a regular picnic spot for the community. In fact, I was very touched to hear a story of one young man who even proposed to his girlfriend in the gardens of our bus station. This is the standard that we want to set for the public service. We want to be known for the quality of service and depth of care for our poorest residents, just as much as we are known for our global accolades. That beautiful new station is just one small part of a 7 billion rand upgrade and expansion of our My City public bus service that we run, expanding its dedicated red lanes to Khayelitsha, Mitchells Plain, and Philippi, and connecting through to Wynberg and Claremont. This My City expansion is a statement, a flag in the ground of our commitment to communities that still are deeply affected by apartheid spatial planning and gripped by poverty. This is how we envisage the future of those neighborhoods. I also went just a couple of weeks ago to see the completion of a brand new stormwater project in another informal settlement called Kosovo, where there's never been stormwater infrastructure before. An incredibly complex project, trying to weave new pipelines and dig deep trenches between shacks and informal structures so tightly packed that you can hardly squeeze through at shoulder width, and all the while fighting back the constant unwanted attention of local construction mafias. This was an unbelievably complex project, but what a magnificent project to see completed. In the end, it means that come this next winter, with Cape Town's usual deluge in July, these homes will have proper drainage for the first time ever. and might experience their first winter with dry floors on the Cape Flats. This is the kind of life-changing service improvement. Thank you. This is the kind of life-changing service improvement we want to be known for, as well as all those other international accolades. It is not either or, it must be both. And that stormwater project, a relatively small expenditure, but absolutely critical and life-changing for those residents, that is just one project of more than 4 billion rand this year alone that we are spending on water projects, pipe projects, sewer projects, and almost exclusively, I would say more than 90% of those water projects in particular in communities like Kosovo and other poorer and working class neighborhoods around Cape Town. So I will never get tired of telling people that the city of Cape Town has the most progressive, most redistributive budget and program of all city governments in South Africa. Because when I'm saying it for the 100th time, many people are hearing it for the first time. We are very proud of the fact that a full 75% of our record 12 billion rand infrastructure budget this year alone is being spent on projects and services that directly benefit lower income households across the city. And I'm equally proud of the fact that our ratepayers are such supportive and understanding partners in this mission. Just to put that investment into some perspective, that 75% portion that we are investing in poorer communities of Cape Town, just that portion amounts to about 9 billion rand this year alone. That 9 billion rand is bigger than the entire infrastructure budget of any other city in South Africa. Not the portion that they are investing in poorer communities, bigger than their entire infrastructure budget. And the 40 billion rand that we're spending over the coming 3 years is bigger than all 3 of the metros in Gauteng combined. We have to do this, or we will go the route of those metros in Gauteng and KZN and the Eastern Cape and Mangaung and elsewhere. You all know what I'm talking about here. You've seen the WhatsApps from friends and family. You've seen the pictures on social media. The terrible neglect and decay that follows years and years, even decades, of underinvestment in infrastructure and maintenance. We've all seen the photos, and we've read the desperate pleas of residents of those cities for their governments to do something, anything, to stop the rot and reverse the trajectory. But the sad reality is that this should have been done 10 or 15 years ago. By the time that the problem has grown to the scale we're seeing in parts of Johannesburg and other metros today, it is very, very hard indeed to turn things around from that point now. And so we have vowed, we have made a firm commitment to ourselves and to you that this will never be allowed to happen in Cape Town. That is why we are setting new national capital expenditure records every year of this term in office. And it's why we're spending it on things that really matter, like those two projects that I've just spoken about, and many, many others like it. For example, our massive pipeline of affordable housing across the city is another statement of our commitment, a flag in the ground to unstitching the legacy of apartheid and spatial planning. Excuse me. With more than 12,000 affordable residential opportunities at various stages of completion in our city, and with sites released just in the last 2 years that will deliver more than 4,500 rental units, we have significantly sped up the delivery of affordable housing in Cape Town, including in the inner city and other well-located areas. This intent is also evident in our efforts to keep Cape Town's most crime-ravaged communities safer. Despite having very limited policing powers and no control over SAP's resources and how they are deployed, we have taken the decision to stand in the gap between the level of policing that South Africa needs and the level of policing that South Africa has, and try to bridge that gap as best as we can. We've invested heavily in our own city policing resources, and these investments are making an undeniable positive difference. So far this year, this term, we have funded 430 new officers on the streets of Cape Town and have made an unprecedented investment in safety technologies, which are paying dividends. Gun arrests are up more than 30% across Cape Town over the last couple of years, and many of those thanks to the excellent work of the Cape Town Metro Police. Make no mistake, all of us know we are still far from where we want to be in the fight against gangsterism and drugs. But the fact is that this is the only metro in the country that is moving the numbers in the right direction rather than the wrong direction. And so, bit by bit, project by project, we are determined to make these areas synonymous with dependable basic services, quality public amenities like libraries and public pools, with beautiful and welcoming spaces, and with ever safer communities. We want residents of Khayelitsha and Langa and Manenberg and Philippi and Gugs and Dunoon and Mitchell's Plain and Bonteheuwel and everything in between, every other Cape Town community, to experience a sense of pride, a sense of care, and an acknowledgement that there is a genuine effort to achieve excellence in public service here in this city. That is our commitment to build a city of hope. But ladies and gentlemen, there's so much more that we could do if we were able to cooperate efficiently across the spheres of government. We've of course had a long and excellent partnership with the Western Cape Provincial Government, and it's no secret that the successes achieved by both the city and the province have a lot to do with us pulling in the same direction on all major issues and policy areas. The same could not be said of our working relationship with the national state in years gone by, where an ideological stubbornness combined with petty one-upmanship has often hampered any chance of progress. Recently, of course, with the watershed formation of the GNU last year, we've started to see the first green shoots of real cooperation with national government departments, as the new personnel of the GNU brought fresh ideas and perspective to the table. Not all departments, of course, it has to be said, but enough to make a noticeable impact. After years of what could only be described as permafrost, it has been so refreshing to deal with a national police minister, for example, who seems open to the idea of dialogue around expanded policing powers for the city so that we can help to bridge that gap that I spoke about between the policing South Africa needs and that which South Africa has. If all goes well, and touch wood, 2025 will see an amended SAPS Act giving more investigative powers to the city and other cities to deal specifically with gun, drug, and gang crimes. This will be the biggest step forward in decades for policing in Cape Town and for fighting crime in gang-ravaged areas, and is a very, very exciting development for this year. Elsewhere, we've had excellent cooperation from the Department of Home Affairs, both in terms of much-needed reforms to visa regulations, as well as improvements to the efficiency of Home Affairs branches. And very soon, we'll be opening our own very first brand new smart Home Affairs branch right in our own civic center, where we have made that cooperation work immediately and to the benefit of our public. We've also made great progress in partnership with the Department of Public Works on the issue of problem buildings across the city. You can be reasonably assured that if you see a problem building in Cape Town or an illegally occupied space, it is usually belonging to a national government entity like the Department of Public Works or PRASA or Transnet. But we have tried to work on those together. And the recent eviction of the illegal occupation around the Castle of Good Hope is certainly not something that would have happened under the old Public Works. So we are unambiguous in our mission. We will work with whoever we can. We will do all that we can to grow the Cape Town economy faster, to make our positive contribution to growing the South African economy faster, so that we can get more people out of poverty and into work. That is our mission and obsession. And while they still do not have a job yet, we will do all that we can, not only to be known as a city of international acclaim, but also as a city that stands out in its care and its work to improve the quality of life of our poorest residents. Every decision that we make passes through that filter. We are mobilizing every infrastructure rand that we can, every brick and pipe and tool that we can, and we are putting it to work to build the City of Hope. Whether it be the work that we do in attracting more tourists, and we've just got the numbers this week, for the first time ever, Cape Town will cross over the 10 million visitor mark. Yeah. So whether it be the work that we do in attracting more tourists, or the work that we do in fighting crime, or the work that we do in making it easier to do business here, we are doing everything we can, mobilizing everything that we can, taking every action that we can that will guarantee Cape Town's future success for many years to come. I'm confident, ladies and gentlemen, that because of these things, because of all that we are doing, Cape Town's very best days are not the days that we are experiencing now, but that they are still ahead of us, because of the decisions and investments that we are making now. But I always ask myself, what more can we be doing? What else can we do? How can we up the ante even more? How can we unlock even more growth? Because we have a deep sense of urgency. And the answer is, of course, that there are still several things that could meaningfully, positively change our trajectory in Cape Town and South Africa. But all of those things require national government to shift gear and show the same commitment to growth and getting people into work nationally that we are showing here. There are just still far too many areas where national government's stubborn refusal to change tack from what has not worked for so long is holding Cape Town and South Africa back. Chief amongst those is the critical issue of devolving passenger rail from Prasa to the city of Cape Town. In the absence of any meaningful progress on the release of the department's so-called rail devolution strategy, which has been promised for 3 years, we have gone ahead with our own investigation and study into the feasibility of how to make a city-run metro rail work. And later this year, we'll be releasing those documents publicly. It's absolutely critical that we restore this essential public service to its former level and get tens and hundreds of thousands of Cape Townians back into affordable, safe, and reliable trains. The devolution of this service to the city will absolutely kick Cape Town and any other cities that also it's devolved to into another gear. Another essential intervention that will give Cape Town's economy a precious boost is the change of operating model at our port through private sector participation and management and investment. Under Transnet management, ladies and gentlemen, our port is languishing right at the bottom of the World Bank's Container Port Performance Index. I recently, or last year, actually not so recently, last year had the wonderful opportunity of doing a short executive leadership course through Harvard and Bloomberg in America. And one of the mayors at that course with me was the mayor of a place called Long Beach, California. And I recognized that name immediately because Long Beach, California had the distinction of being the only place then that was below Cape Town's harbor as the worst performing harbor in the world. And I pointed that out to the mayor, and he was so shocked, he didn't believe me. I had to pull up the World Bank Index to prove to him that it was true. But of course now, when the new results were released, that has unfortunately changed. And Cape Town Harbor is at the bottom of the index. Given its importance to our local economy, with more than 55% of all agricultural exports leaving South Africa, leaving through the port of Cape Town, it is incredibly frustrating to have such a poorly performing bottleneck of inefficiency at the Cape Town port. So this year, I'm determined that I'm going to loudly increase my advocacy on this issue. I want to say that I'm genuinely very supportive of Michelle Phillips, the new Chief Executive of Transnet. She is brand new in her job, and she seems genuinely committed to driving the introduction of private sector management at some of Transnet's largest assets. You will have seen, some of you will have seen in the business day this morning, Ms. Phillips commenting or committing that Transnet will go to market for further private management at the port of Ngqura, at Richards Bay, and some of their other busiest freight rail routes. That is undeniably good news for South Africa, and we welcome that. But sadly, Ms. Phillips also explicitly and inexplicably excluded the Port of Cape Town from this privatization drive. This is simply not good enough, and we will step up our advocacy for this critical reform, which would single-handedly add billions of dollars and thousands of jobs to the Cape economy. So these are just some of the low-hanging fruits that could easily be harvested through a spirit of cooperation with the national government. And I want to say that I will use whatever leverage I have to make sure that these issues make their way to the top of the GNU's agenda. We are now coming to what could be described as the end of the honeymoon period for the GNU. And while there's been much camaraderie and bonhomie up to now, we must keep our minds focused on the profound urgency out there on the streets. Thank you very much. It is boiling hot up here. So while there's been a lot of camaraderie and bonhomie up to now, and we've all seen it and we've all felt the warm glow of that delight from the GNU, we must keep our minds focused, ladies and gentlemen, on what is happening out there in South Africa. Because all of that camaraderie has not changed the fact that 11 million people are unemployed in our country. All of those 11 million require of our government urgent and big reforms that will generate meaningfully foster economic growth. Softly, softly, gently, gently, has been the approach of President Ramaphosa and his government for years now. But it just won't cut it anymore. We need the big reforms that would liberate the economy and create meaningful growth and jobs. I believe that the Government of National Unity's best possible course of action would be to take a leaf from Cape Town's book. Be exacting in raising standards and expecting more of the state. Do not settle for mediocrity that has become the accepted norm in our country's halls of power. Be clear that we want to be a country that aims higher. I'm not talking about the silly, meaningless statements about smart cities and bullet trains. I mean starting with saying that we cannot accept what is happening to our largest cities in South Africa and have a meaningful plan to do something about it and then do it and hold people accountable for it. Start by replicating the scale and intensity of the program of infrastructure investment that we are doing here in every metro in South Africa. And for goodness sake, don't tinker at the edges of reform. We simply don't have the time. Think of the unemployed. Keep that number 11 million firmly lodged in your mind. So dive in to the reform agenda head first. What's there to lose? It's literally not possible in many cases of our public service to achieve any worse outcomes than we currently have. So we may as well dive into those reforms full on. Like we are doing here, do not shrink back from the decisions now that will make South Africa succeed in the years ahead. These are all the attitudinal changes which come before and are in many ways even more important than the practical changes. These are all the attitudinal changes that we are trying to drive in Cape Town, to unashamedly set higher standards and be an example of excellence and care in South Africa in the public sector. I believe it is possible to do this for South Africa. It won't be easy and it won't be quick. This is a very big and dysfunctional ship to turn around. But if this GNU were to embark today on a similar path to the one that we are pursuing in Cape Town and have pursued for these last years, it could ultimately reach the same destination. And wouldn't that be something, ladies and gentlemen? I don't think any of us doubt the enormous potential that our country has to do and be amazing. But we need to start somewhere. We've got to take that first step towards that future that we want. What we are doing here in Cape Town is walking along that positive forward path. That is not to say that we have everything right, far from it. When you find a government that does, let me know. I'd like to vote for them myself. We are indeed a city of growing global acclaim, and increasingly we are a city that will be known for our care and commitment to improving the lives of the poorest. We still have some way to travel before we can truly call this place a city of hope for all, but we are getting there, one step at a time in the right direction. And in doing so, I believe we are also doing our utmost, our best, to contribute to the national project by showing what can be done to turn South Africa into a country of hope as well. We believe it's possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I was listening to you talk about CapEx and infrastructure, and I was recently in Johannesburg, and I'm just glad that I am not the joint chair of the Johannesburg Press Club based on that. But one question that did come to mind, as you mentioned, Long Beach in California, was the recent fires there and the kind of pressure that your counterpart in Los Angeles has been under. And while I was in Joburg, I was listening to Thabiso Tima's radio show, and somebody called in and said, you know, you're talking about who was right and who was wrong with these fires. Why aren't we as South Africans asking what would happen if one of those fires happened here? And they just went, whoosh him, and they hung up immediately after that. So I just wanted to know from your perspective, beyond infrastructure, do you feel that we are adequately funded when it comes to our disaster relief and the disaster prevention teams throughout the city?
I must say, while those fires were raging, I was doing some detailed budget preparation work for our upcoming budget, which is being tabled in March and which has to be approved and adopted for implementation in July. But the budget takes months of preparation, so I worked on the budget a lot throughout the festive season and carried on working early this year when I saw that happening. And one of the budget requests, the way that it generally works in government is that the various departments send me literally billions of rands in urgent demands for additional expenditure. And one of the phrases that I love to repeat to our colleagues in government all the time is, please remember that there is only one source of government money, and that is the public. So you can't just send through 5 billion rand in new requests. But in this huge pile of requests, most of which does not pass through the filter, I saw one request for additional money for the maintenance of fire breaks. And it was quite a large request, from a joint request from our fire department and from our environmental department. And I was literally sitting at my lounge watching CNN, and I thought, you know, I think that's one I should approve. So there was, so that was approved. But you know, we have an extraordinary fire service in Cape Town. It's by far and away the most capable fire service in the country. It has nearly 1,000, just shy of 1,000 officers, a fantastic array of extraordinary machinery and equipment. It really is very, very well equipped. But just as a matter of interest, when I was watching those blazes on CNN, I did some basic Google research. And the city of San Francisco, the city of Los Angeles, where those fires were, has a fire department of more than 5,500 firemen. And the annual budget for the fire department alone is $850 million. So the question is, you know, our fire department is less than a fifth of that size for a city of only slightly smaller than Los Angeles. So while we are way ahead of any other fire and disaster capacity in South Africa, there is definitely always the risk when you have a disaster of that magnitude that you know, the service will be totally swamped and engulfed. So you have to really focus on preventative measures, which is why I said yes to that funding request as best as you can, and make sure that to the extent that your resources allow, that you carry on investing and slowly but surely over time build up that capacity. But I can tell you, whether it be from floods in KZN to the building collapse in George and every other serious disaster or incident in the country, Cape Town's fire and rescue is always front and center at the scene. They are extraordinary people, and I'm very proud of them.
Good to know. We see what they do whenever there are fires on the mountain. Now I'm going to open up the floor to questions from the media first, and I always feel sorry for Geordin whenever I see him in public because he's swamped with people with like street light requests and cats stuck in trees. So I don't want us to use this opportunity for that. There's a great city service that's equipped to do that, but I will try to get through as many questions as possible if you can just keep them brief. So could we start with the media, Susie? Go.
Hi, Geordin.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Geordin, and thanks for a very interesting speech. As a journalist, I've started taking much more interest in the water situation in Cape Town, obviously. I'm on your Facebook page now. I'm also on the WhatsApp group Bay of Sewage, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yeah.
John Tresfon, the marine conservation photographer, I'm sure you've read this too, says, "Dear Mayor, we pump up to 55 million litres of untreated sewage into our nearshore coastal waters along the Atlantic seaboard daily. Yet the water quality is excellent, you say. Milderton Lagoon is a cesspit of sewage and the entire living ecosystem has collapsed. And this mess enters the sea in Table Bay, yet you say the water is excellent. Many of the city's wastewater treatment works are not operating correctly, and millions of litres of partially treated or untreated sewage is entering the rivers and the sea every day. Yet you say the water quality is excellent." I just want to ask you what your response is to Jean Tresfon, and then just one or two other questions. How much of a priority as a future-facing mayor is clean water in Cape Town, and what budget has been allocated to upgrade the Cape Metropole wastewater treatment plants, and which ones will receive attention first?
Well, thank you for asking that question, actually. That's a wonderful question. Let me respond as follows. The city of Cape Town has an extraordinary coastline, 307 kilometers of coastline. Much of it, not all of it, but much of it absolutely pristine and available and safe and open for the public and visitors alike to use and enjoy. And the city tests the water at our 8 blue flag beaches every single day and publishes the results of those tests online at an online water quality dashboard that anyone can log onto on our city website right now. And by and large, of course it is not exclusively true, a categorical statement, but by and large, the water quality at those beaches is good. The definition to earn a blue flag status is that the water quality must be between good and excellent. I believe it is 95% of the time. It might be 93. Don't quote me on that exact percentage, but it's well over 90%. It has to be. That is independently audited by an international body called WESA and confirmed. And they assign the blue flag status, not us. We do not mark our own homework. They assign it for us. And so they have done so. And so what really annoyed me was that a particular media house, I'm sure they're here today, so I don't want to pick, it's not about the journalists, of course, it's some editor that decided to take this line. But they said that the city of Cape Town was misleading and misleading the public about our blue flag status and in fact had been dishonest. And that is absolutely categorically not true. That is a false and fabricated statement by that media house, and that is what we took serious exception to. We have never claimed that the water is absolutely flawless, but in fact, in the reports of those own, and in fact, by the way, those alternative researchers that did their own testing, they did, correct me if I'm wrong here, Sue, you're on the WhatsApp group, I think they did 9 tests, was that it, 9? The city of Cape Town tests all of those beaches every single day. So we have built up a database of literally thousands of tests. They tested 9 and they found that I think in 2 of them, They found very low levels of E. coli, perfectly safe levels of E. coli, but in 2 of them they found 2 levels of something called enterococci that was too high. And even in their own interviews, they clarified time and time again that they were not suggesting that the city of Cape Town had been dishonest. They had simply found these test results that they were concerned about. So it's actually the media line that we had misled the public that I took most exception to, and which they have now corrected, by the way. That media house has withdrawn that story, deleted it, and deleted all of their posts about it. So it is absolutely true that at other beaches, which are not those blue flag beaches, there are some beaches that are very polluted. Mostly those are the beaches around our river outfalls, because the rivers in Cape Town are polluted, particularly rivers that travel through informality. So once again, it has never been our claim that every single square, or every single meter of those 307 kilometers of coastline is pristine. Our claim was that the city, the residents, visitors can enjoy our blue flag beaches knowing that those are absolutely clean and safe and excellent, and all of the tests are published online. So it's frankly a meaningless statement of Mr. Tresfin, I think, to say that the Milnerton Beach is polluted and yet we're claiming excellent water quality. We've never made that claim about Milnerton Beach. Milnerton Beach is closed to the public because of the state of the Milnerton Lagoon. So we have never made that claim. So I have a lot of admiration for him, by the way. I admire his beautiful photographs of Cape Town from the air, but he is mistaken if he thinks that that is what we have claimed. We have not claimed that. We are making the simple statement that you can go, we are transparent about our water results, they are all online, we have got a magnificent coastline, the larger proportion of which is absolutely fine and safe and healthy and beautiful for the public and visitors alike to enjoy. And I think that that's something that we should appreciate as a city and enjoy it together. Now, let me say, on the second half of your question, that's almost the most important part, because if even a cursory kind of insight or knowledge of our city's budget will show you that the huge majority of our money, our capital projects, is going into water projects. A lot of it is pipe upgrades in communities, as I've spoken about today, but a huge amount of it is water treatment plant upgrades and sewer treatment plant upgrades. And there are 4 treatment plants all receiving huge upgrades in the city. That is the Potsdam Wastewater Treatment Works, Macassar Wastewater Treatment Works, Athlone Wastewater Treatment Works, and Mitchell's Plain Wastewater Treatment Works. Now, 3 of those projects are already underway. Potsdam is under construction, Athlone is under construction, and Macassar is in fact about to start construction. It's not quite underway. Zandvliet is already done. We finished the upgrade and opened it last year. It has got state-of-the-art upgrade and capacity and is producing absolutely top-notch effluent discharge into the system. So there's no other, perhaps that My City project, that's about close on 8 billion rand. But other than that one My City project, there is no other project in the city getting a bigger allocation than wastewater treatment work upgrades. So the system is under pressure, but it is absolutely receiving the attention it requires. And as for your statement of intent, of course, I'm deeply committed to cleaning up these water bodies. We've had a lot of success, by the way. I feel like the message from this WhatsApp group is always constantly, the city is not doing enough. By the way, they have never actually made a constructive suggestion for how to deal with the coastal outfalls, because they are not easy things to deal with. They've been there for nearly 100 years, and they are ubiquitously used across the world. There's hundreds of them around the world. But they're a very, very, very expensive and tricky problem to deal with. So The statement of intent, if you look at our programs, you look at our dredging, we're about to start dredging the Sikufle. Later this year, we will be dredging the Milnerton Lagoon. You look at our river cleanup programs, 20 new litter booms last year, another 20 new litter booms this year. All the litter socks, all of the stuff. I could go into so much detail, which I won't do now because maybe not everyone else is on the WhatsApp group. But I tell you, we are absolutely committed to improving water quality, but it is not an easy thing to do. I will just leave you with one last thought. So committed are we that we have been meeting regularly online with the government of Paris. And in fact, I will be spending some time with them later this year. Thanks very much to the French consulate for arranging that. But we've been meeting on Zoom with the mayor of Paris, who is engaged, or was engaged until recently, in the biggest river cleanup project in the world to prepare the River Seine for the Olympics. That river project alone, not the rest of the Olympics, that river project alone cost 1.7 billion euros. 1.7 billion euros. So it is not an easy thing or a quick overnight thing to clean up extremely polluted urban waterways. But we're on the right track. Sorry for the detailed answer, but you asked for it.
Staying with water, we are hoping to have the Water and Sanitation Minister with us later this year. So please always look out for the invites that we send out. I thought Geordin and I were melting because of the lights, but apparently the aircon is on the fritz, so I apologize for any discomfort that any of you are experiencing. Can we take the next two media questions, and can I ask you very kindly just to introduce yourselves, as well as we've got some guests joining us via Panastream as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Jason Felix, News 24. I just have two very quick questions, and hopefully it will be as detailed as the first question that you just answered.
I apologize for that.
The Government of National Unity, you spoke quite extensively on it, and as a former member of Parliament, you know the intricacies of what happens at a national level. How confident are you that this GNU will last the full 5 years? Because we are seeing that there are teething problems and there are disagreements, but somehow we manage to wheel on despite those differences, especially from your party, the DA. And then the second question I want to ask is just what is next for Geordin Hill, as you've got 1 year remaining on just about a year remaining on your term as mayor. Are you open to participating in the leadership debate or the leadership succession debate of the DA in any position, be it as leader, if you maybe will challenge John Steenhuisen or not? And then secondly, if you are not, are you open to a second term to become mayor again of Cape Town?
That's the easiest question. Yes is the answer. Yes is the answer. So let me say it's a very dangerous thing, Jason, to try and make predictions in politics. I've been wrong many, many times before. But my gut tells me that I think the GNU will survive at least the next 2 years. And the reason for that is that in 2 years' time, at the end of 2027, is the ANC's next elective conference. I think that there is enough goodwill and commitment inside the GNU at the moment to at least see it through until then. After that, I'm not prepared to make any firm prediction. All bets are off after that, because so much depends on who is ascendant at that conference. We understand that the president is unlikely. He's not legally proscribed from running again, but he is unlikely to do so because there's a term limit in the presidency. And so we understand he faces this kind of very militant anti-GNU faction inside the party. And I just don't know how that balance of forces is going to play out. What I want to do, and this is why I speak about the urgency so much, I think that we have probably a window of 2 years to make a really meaningful change in South Africa. And we cannot let that opportunity go. We have to use every single day to its maximum potential to get South Africa moving and growing. because we just don't know what the future is after 2 years' time. But I'm going to put money on it that it'll last 2 years. Sorry, I don't want to dodge your other question. Look, as I said, and I meant it genuinely, I really, really love this job. It's extremely fulfilling. It's very intellectually stimulating and challenging. And I really am not interested in looking for other work at this time. I'm not ruling it out for the future, but at this time, to be honest, the question does not even arise, because there's no conference anytime soon. There is a leader who has my full support. John has my full support, and so the question doesn't arise. For now, I'm very happy and very keen to do another term.
Yeah.
It's Irma Venter from Engineering News. We've had 300 days of no load shedding now. So the question is, do you trust that that will continue? You have a multi-billion rand, I think, budget for to make Cape Town Power independent. Are you putting that money elsewhere? Are you continuing? What are your plans for power and your outlook for Eskom?
No, we're not putting that money elsewhere because it might come back, and I really hope it doesn't for South Africa's sake. Again, we want to get economic growth. Load shedding is absolutely inimical to a growing economy, so I don't want it to come back. But in point of fact, every single megawatt of power that we are now buying is cheaper than Eskom power. So I think increasingly the debate in South Africa is going to turn on the affordability of power, not so much its availability. For the last 10 years, the public anger has focused on availability, and we have kind of put up with these extraordinary year-on-year price increases because of the availability crisis. Now that the availability crisis is receding, I think there's going to be a lot more public attention on the affordability issue. And we are still waiting for a decision on the 40% price increase application, but that would mean already barely affordable or unaffordable prices become 40% less affordable overnight. And before that 40% increase, all the power that Cape Town is buying right now is cheaper than Eskom's current price. So frankly, our ambition must be to reduce our reliance on Eskom as fast as possible. As fast as possible. And we will do that.
Right. Are there any questions, Lindsay? Dentlinger, Eyewitness News.
Thanks very much. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News. Geordin, I just want to challenge you on your response to what you just said to Jason, because the DA elective conference is not that far away that you're making out to be. It's April next year. And so within the next 6 to 7 months, those who are interested in throwing their hat into the ring would surely begin to indicate that, because you would have to start getting your campaign in order. So I'm just asking whether you're being a bit coy about whether or not that it's really not that far down the line. And then secondly, structural reforms. It's almost become a buzzword that I think the ordinary man on the street doesn't actually know what government persistently means by structural reforms. Be that as it may, what's the one reform, if we can call it that, that you would want to see happen that could propel Cape Town to greater heights?
Yes, thank you very much. So, okay, let me try and be as unambiguous as I possibly can be. I am personally very loyal to John. He's a dear friend of mine, and I have absolutely no intention of standing against him as long as he wants to stand. So that's why I say the question does not arise, because he is in the position, and I'm certainly not going to stand against him. There's no universe in which that is possible. That will not happen. I hope that's unambiguous. So the second question is, I think the port is the biggest thing. It's a great question, because we are doing everything that we can to try and get the Cape Town economy growing. And I think to myself, I rack my brain, what are those things which would make a kind of 1% difference? And 1% on an economy the size of Cape Town is a massive difference. There's not many things that anyone can do that add 1% of economic growth per year for the future. And I really think that one thing is the Port of Cape Town. It is significantly holding back this regional economy. And it is holding back precisely an industry that is one of the most labor unforgivable in the country, and that is the agriculture industry. So it is truly unforgivable. And I mean that, it's unforgivable. When you think of 11 million unemployed people and the scale of poverty in our country, to not institute that reform or pursue that reform because of some kind of ideological obsession that you have is unforgivable. So I am going to make it much louder this year and make it a little bit more uncomfortable, because that is the thing that Cape Town and indeed the South African economy needs to move to a higher plane.
Your questions before there we go. Let's take that one.
Mr. Mayor, Matthew from Ground Up News. You spoke about problem buildings earlier belonging to national government, but one building that is owned by the city is the Woodstock Hospital. That public participation for the selling of that hospital is ending at the end of this month. The city initially committed to meeting with the residents of the hospital during the public participation phase. I've been told by the MMC that that is not happening until after the public participation phase. Can you explain why that might be? And then the second part of that question would be to say, there was a 2019 report that was done by the city, commissioned by the city, obviously not your government, a previous government, that spoke about the Woodstock Hospital and about the possible development there. Would the city be willing to release that report publicly? And just lastly, can you speak about some of the social housing challenges? You've released a lot of properties for land, but we know some of the challenges that's faced by national government budget cuts. So just expand on that, please. Thanks.
Okay, so just for everyone's context, Woodstock Hospital is an old provincial government hospital in Woodstock, as the name suggests. It was handed over to the city some years ago when it was no longer used as a hospital. At some point, I'm not exactly sure when, Fiona, probably when was that in occupation? 2018. 2019, it was illegally occupied by a group of residents, and they have been illegally living inside of that hospital building for some time, or since then, obviously, since 2019. And it really puts the city in a conundrum. The city intended to use that hospital building to redevelop it into social housing, which is essentially subsidized, state-subsidized rental housing. But in order to do that, in South Africa, as I think everyone now knows, given how much we've spoken about the issue of homelessness in the city, in South Africa, if you wish to remove any person from a building or location or site and do something with that building, you have to offer them an alternative place to live. And that alternative, based on various court judgments, cannot be at a very distant location, and it has to meet the court's definition of suitable alternative accommodation and so on. And that puts a really nearly unbearable burden on the state, in this case the city, because there are now close to 1,000 people living inside that building, and it's unbelievably difficult, near impossible for the city to process an eviction order, because we would have to actually accommodate those people elsewhere, which is very difficult to do. So it puts the city in a bit of a stalemate, in that we want to use the property for development, we want to use it for social housing. We cannot do so because it's illegally occupied. It's very hard to resolve the illegal occupation because we also cannot accommodate those residents elsewhere. So it's a very, very difficult situation. The residents have proposed, and I must say, I always stress that they are illegal occupants. That doesn't mean that they're all necessarily bad people. Some of them have had very tragic life circumstances that have given rise to them being there. But nevertheless, in terms of the law, they are illegal occupants. And they have proposed a model in which they redevelop the property, and most, if not all of them, get to stay at the redeveloped property. Now, of course, on the face of it, that sounds very attractive. That squares the circle. It finds on the face, compromise solution. But what is the precedent that it sets? The precedent that it sets is that you can occupy a piece of state-owned land or a state-owned building and then force the state, by dint of your own occupation, to essentially provide you with housing at that site and building and location because you simply refuse to leave and the state can't accommodate you elsewhere. So I think that that's a very, very dangerous precedent to set in a law-abiding society. You cannot really be a society built on the rule of law if you allow that kind of precedent to be set. So despite the fact that we have genuine compassion for many of the people that live there, of course there are also many bad elements in that building, and there's been a lot of complaints and criminal activity in that building as well, but certainly not everyone. We cannot agree to the request to house all of those people illegally occupying that building at that site. That doesn't mean that we're not prepared to talk to them. So I'm not sure when this meeting that you speak about is happening. I'm sure that it will. But I have been there personally myself. I've met with the residents. I've sat in their kind of apartments, the old hospital rooms, and spoken with them. I know that our human settlements staff are there, if not daily, then certainly weekly, to try and manage that building so that it doesn't turn into a complete kind of slum condition. And so there is a lot of engagement. The idea that they propagate that there's an unwillingness to engage is not true. But we are fairly firm on the principled line that in a society built on the rule of law, you cannot put up a sign, effectively put up a big neon sign outside every government building that says, if you invade this building, you can force the government to develop it into housing for you. That is not a healthy thing for South Africa's future, and we're not going to be party to that.
Thank you. I'm going to be blamed by the City of Cape Town for making you late for your next engagement, but I do want to take one brief question from the floor. There we go. If you can just keep it quite concise before you wrap it up. Sorry? Hoffman. Paul Hoffman, yeah.
Paul Hoffman.
Paul Hoffman. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Chairman, it's your choice.
No, absolutely.
Oh, you did. You recognized Paul.
There we go.
Thank you. I think I got in by a short head, if it was a horse race. I have to congratulate you because you've managed to speak to us for more than an hour without mentioning the word corruption. You've also given us an indication that you think that the GNU will last at least 2 years.
Yeah.
The reality check on that is the 2 bills that Glynis Breitenbach has introduced in Parliament last November to create an anti-corruption body, which she calls the Chapter 9 Anti-Corruption Commission. Now, please make a note of it because it's important that you should keep an eye on it. I suspect, having spent a long time on this, that those bills will be the cause of the collapse of the GNU because Glynis is a bulldog and will insist on her bills being put to the vote, and the ANC is corrupt and won't vote for them. And at that point, the GNU will come to an end. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, Paul, as I said, it's a very dangerous business trying to make predictions in politics. Just ask Assad in Syria. Things can change very quickly. So I don't know. Maybe that is going to be the cause of the collapse of the GNU. Maybe you're right. But my gut still tells me that you are wrong. And I'll say briefly why. I think the DA is able to use the nuclear option only once. So it absolutely has the power to walk out of the government and cause the government to no longer have a majority. Even with all of the other smaller parties, it does not have a majority without the DA. So we can use that card, but we can use it only once. And then it's over. And then the next week, you, corruption buster extraordinaire, And all of the other people in this room and in South Africa must witness the swearing in of the alternative governing coalition, which will consist of the EFF and the MKP. So, the point of me saying so is that we have to be extremely, extremely judicious in our use of the nuclear option. And it really has to be reserved for the biggest and most existential of things. Now, you might say that the formation of a new Chapter 9 organization that's going to investigate corruption is one of those nuclear button issues. Is it going to be that effective in hunting down all of the corrupt elements inside the ANC? I sincerely hope so. But I'm not sure that the ANC will allow itself to be seen to be so an obvious anti-corruption initiative. I think that they might do what they are extraordinarily good at, which is weaponized incompetence. And agree wholeheartedly to set up a new body and then just kneecap it by filling it with the most utterly incompetent people or deployed cadres. So there's lots of ways to get around the new Chapter 9 body. I don't want to in any way diminish your initiative, because I think it's a great initiative and it's something that South Africa needs. I'm not sure that it's going to lead to the collapse of the GNU. I hope it doesn't, but you might be right. We'll see.
Thanks for the question, Mr. Hoffman. I think we'll leave the questions there. Thank you so much. Great. I'd like to say a big, big thank you to the Mayor, Geordin Hill-Lewis, as well as his team. I believe in giving credit where it's due, and we invited them to this function just a couple of weeks ago, and they readily agreed. And we always really appreciate leaders who are willing to be held accountable, willing to face their constituents as well as the media. So thank you very much for graciously
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
honoring our invitation. Now, before we all run off, I just wanted to flag a few things. Sorry there. The first was to say that it's a new year, and of course, this organization exists because we've got members like you who join us. So it's subscription time. Lalage is hounding people who have not paid for this year's subscriptions to please settle them. I'm on the list too, Lalage, so I'm guilty too. You can see me too. But Lalage is happy to take payment either here or you can email her. If you're not a member of the Cape Town Press Club and would like to be a member of the Cape Town Press Club, please contact Lalage. Wave, Lalage. There we go. And she'll either give you a form or you can chat to her via email, and we'll keep you tuned into all our latest events. And then lastly, in terms of upcoming events, on the 12th of February, I'll be in conversation with Zelda Lagrange. Those of you who know her very well will remember that she was a PA to former President Nelson Mandela for many years. And she got herself into hot water a few years ago and has written a new book where she talks about the lessons that she's learned from Mandela to help her through that period. I scratched the surface of this conversation with her on radio about a month ago, so I'm looking forward to getting in depth with that. She'll really want to join us for that one. And then in March, on the 6th of March, we've got Prof. Musa Moshabela, who's the new Vice Chancellor at UCT, and he's going to be telling us how he's going to try and stay out of the media for all the wrong reasons, unlike his predecessors. So we're looking forward to having that. There'll be a lot more events in between, so please stay tuned. And before the Mayor leaves, we've got a little gift for you. It's a piece of art from the incredible Tony Grogan. There he is, right there. Right here. Thank you so much. Great, thank you very much, and we'll see you at our next event. Thank you.